I am Dr. Carlos J. Sánchez. I'm a doctor of medicine, pediatrics. I practice in the United States. I studied medicine over there. I'm originally from Peru, but I am an American citizen. What I have done in my almost 70 years of residence in the United States, I began to write a book about the history of my ancestors. This is what is called the Holocaust of all times, and actually says the rape of ancestral continent, the Holocaust of all times, the genocide of the Incas, the annihilation of the Indians. So this is what I'm trying to more or less come to a consensus of what happened to us, the original Americans, or Indians as we are called. So I did start with Bartolomé de las Casas, which you already seen it. Bartolomé de las Casas was a priest, a Catholic priest that came as a soldier with the second trip of Christopher Columbus. And he started to do the same things that all the conquerors were doing, which is mutilating the people. In other words, making genocide on the Indians of the islands, Haiti, and those places. He began to have conscious of what he was doing. He could not accept what was happening to the Indians, where they were chopping their hands, dismembering, disemboweling women, even with their children, and so on. So he begins to advocate for the American Indians, or the Indians, or the nurturers of the time. And he eventually, after years of seeing all this depravity, he wrote a short, which is actually the more or less the introduction of the book, the synthesis of the brief account of the destruction of the Indians by Fray Bartolomé de las Casas. And that was my prologue, more or less. And then I go to the one who more or less spoke about the book, Mr. José Jalón. He was a writer from Extremadura, Spain, promoting it and impelling force of the 5th centenary discovery of the Amazon by Francisco de Orellana. That was in the Orellana year, Trujillo, Spain, 2011. Then we'll go back to the synthesis, and here's Fray Bartolomé de las Casas from the Museum of Mexico, and then we gradually get into Manco Capac. As you begin to read Manco Capac, it's somewhat confusing because there are so many names there. Like in the Roman Empire, I mean, you imagine the Roman Empire was created by Romulus and Remus, who were actually raised by a shield wolf, and eventually the Roman Empire came to be. Obviously that probably didn't happen, but it's a myth. And nevertheless, that is the history of how the Roman Empire began, of how Rome began. The same with the Incas, or the initial inhabitants of this continent. And then we have Manco Capac. So Manco Capac is our founder of the Inca Empire, and in this book, to each Inca I give a more or less their name, or the reason why I'm writing about him. Obviously, Manco Capac is our patriarch, is the beginning of our history. So what I'm trying to more or less explain with Manco Capac is that we had about different myths legends of how the Inca Empire began. And it gets kind of confusing. And first of all, we start with the beginning of the faraway, I guess, Inca Empire, in which we're talking of the creator of everything, which Viracocha, Pacha, Yacha, Chic. So, Manco Capac, it appears that with his wife, they somehow rose from the Titicaca Lake, which is the highest lake in the world. And from there, with his wife and a scepter of gold, they had instructions of going down to find a valley, a fertile valley. And eventually they get to the city of Cusco, which in the old days was Acamama. And that is where we would say is the beginning of the Inca Empire. But then there are the theories where 4 brothers and 4 sisters came out of the Lake Titicaca with a sort of instructions from the higher being to go south and find an Inca Empire or a civilization. But in the process of traveling, apparently there were very many small towns or villages where they were warring, fighting each other, and these brothers, they tried to unite them, and so they arrived to this, eventually they arrived to this big cave, Pacaritambo cave, and then something happens in there where there is one brother, which apparently was the strongest, Ayarcachi, which is onda, or sling. He throws so hard that breaks a mountain, and the brothers get kind of jealous about his strength. So they keep on working, and eventually they decide to continue on the trip. And they tell him, well, go to the cave and bring us our belongings and our seeds. But that was an ardid, you know, the quotes. He goes over there, and then the brother, well, the chronics, they say that they go and they put a big stone, or they pull a big stone and they lock him up in the cave. And he tries so hard that he becomes a stone, and the whole mountain shatters sort of, and obviously he died. Then, as Manco Capac tells us in this story, he continues with the brothers and sisters, and there's the possibility there was sort of an intermarriage or taking of the wives. We got one of the brothers becomes a condor. He's also killed, and then he goes to, they form another town, another, what they call Waka, or a place to do his reverence to this new being. So we continue with Manco Capac, in which he goes to Cusco and forms the beginning of the city of the Incas, which is Acamama, now is Cusco. And then he takes over and begins to form the Inca Empire, and that's where I start to meet him. The reason how I describe in such a way is because I was born in Cusco. My grandfather was from Cusco, and he even was he used to make ponchos, and so I more or less get the idea of what's Cusco, what was all Cusco. Remember, I'm talking about 70 years ago, and 70 years ago Cusco was still almost what it was before, not as advanced as is today because of the tourism. So as a patriarch, I asked him, how did he find the American Empire? But then he says, well, what happened to you guys? I mean, the Inca Empire began in 1250. He says, what happened? We left you a big empire. I understand that you are now in such a depravity, all poor, lost your dignity, and all that. And I never thought that would happen. And I begin to tell him, yes, we lost the empire, perhaps because you're the cause of it, or the other remaining 12 Incas, because the Spaniards were already coming. America wasn't discovered yet, we're in the year 1250. So basically that's what the encounter with Manco Capac is. I was saying also, and we talked with him, is that there is such a thing as an ancient Inca history, but just like any place else. Where do we come from? Who created us? So they come with apparently the Incas also found Tiahuanaco, which is by the Titicaca Lake in the side of Bolivia. They found these big structures that I'm sure many of you have seen. And then apparently that, one time that's a city or a portuary city in the Titicaca Lake. And then they form, I guess, a big metropolis with huge stones, huge effigies, that to these days they are there, and one cannot imagine how these big boulders were built in such a way that most of the stones are cut so perfect that it looked like they were done by laser beams. And it's possible that Tiwanaku was an ancient civilization, probably thousands, if not millions of years. And Inca Manco Capac also says that this was an ancient to us too, as it is to you. And that's for the creator of all. And the most important thing to remember in this is the name of Huiracocha Pacha Yacha Chic. That is the name. And that's eventually we're going to see as we read, the Huiracochas were the helpers of the Huiracocha Pacha Yacha Chic. And the Incas eventually will confuse these semi-gods of the Huiracochas with the Spaniards that were coming or eventually will take over Peru. That was probably one of the reasons, not knowing who were the redeemers. They thought it was the gods that were coming, and in this case the gods were the Spaniards. So it's a little confusing, but I hope you get some idea of what I mean by the Manco Capac.
Soy el licenciado Rafael Cifuentes.
Yeah.
Estamos en Lima, Perú, 22 de abril del año 2018, ¿no? Estamos con el doctor Carlos Sánchez, ¿no? Y por favor descríbanos más o menos la personalidad del primer Inca patriarca, que es Manco Capac.
Yeah. At this point, I should say that I am in Peru, probably for the last time. My mother just died, so I met this professor of history at the University of San Marcos, who read the book in Spanish. He doesn't speak English, and he was very, very interested in knowing more about this book and why we're making this film. He feels that there is something unusual about this book because in all the history written, nothing is taken as a dialogue between the Incas and a person of the present. So that's why he's interested in me trying to explain more about this book. And he just asked me, what was the personality of Manco Capac? Well, the personality of Manco Capac is like any patriarch. He was noble, he was strong, he was wise more than anything else, and he was an old man. The interesting thing of this, like I said before, I was born in Cusco. I knew my grandfather. He was tall. He was an Indian or an Inca descendant. So I more or less copied that personality and I transferred to Manco Capac. I mentioned he has the Indian nose, he's got the protruding facial structures and the receding chin, an Inca like me, you know. So, so that's the personality of this person is like any patient. You don't want to say anything bad about him. Even if he had a wife, even he might even have committed fratricide among the other brothers and sisters. But he is considered a wise person. So